Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Extreme Weight Loss. I am your host, Brandon Schneider. I am very pleased to welcome, over the next 2 episodes, a very knowledgeable person, a very wonderful person. I had a great time talking to her, Jackie Miller. You might know her online under the name Snarky Mother Nutrition. She is a dietitian in training, a nutritionist, and overall, again, just a great source of knowledge when it comes to helping one navigate this whole area. I talk with her about what I had done to lose weight, diet culture, gym culture, and just how to adopt better habits to make yourself both physically healthier, but also really keep that mental health up. So please enjoy the next 2 episodes again with Jackie Miller with Snarky Mother Nutrition. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for coming here, Jackie. I'd like to give you an opportunity to go ahead and introduce yourself to anybody who is going to be listening on this episode.
Fantastic. Yes. Hello. My name is Jackie. I am a nutrition coach. I have been for 4 years. I'm actually specializing in prenatal and postnatal fitness right now and going through a dietetics program with the University of Arizona.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so what does that program entail?
For this program, I will become a registered dietitian. Right now, I do work with programs created by registered dietitians to help people make behavioral changes and different mindset changes in order to be able to stick with healthier lifestyles, help them choose healthier foods that fit into their life and incorporate physical fitness. With the status of registered dietitian, I will be able to further individualize those plans
Hmm.
and really help people who are not in the, quote unquote, normal situations, the ones who have more of the hormonal issues and need special considerations in their diet and exercise.
Oh, that's very, very fascinating. A lot of because that's a lot of making healthier choices, and maybe be more aware of that is something that I do feel is important, even if I've slacked off the last year, like a lot of
Mhm.
people might have. Um, but that's just fascinating. There's a whole career out there that can help people basically be that sort of mentor, if you will, to others who might need that help, right?
Oh, absolutely. You would be surprised how many people truly just need someone to hold their hand and point them into the direction of the research
Hmm.
for them to even look at themselves because there's so much noise online that when you sit down to try to look at the research on your own, I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would get completely overwhelmed, coming from a standpoint of I want to make healthier choices, look at all of this stuff that people are telling me to do. I don't know what's right. I'm just not going to do it.
I love that you bring that up because that's where I was
Hmm.
in 2017. By the time this episode will air, I'll have
Hmm.
already shared kind of my own journey. But just to give you a background, I weighed almost 350 pounds in 2017, and this was July or January. I made a couple of minor dietary changes, and by
Hmm.
the end of December, I was down to a little over 300. But then from January 4th of 2018 all the way through, really, through the end of the year, but the primary bulk of it was
Hmm.
through, I think, about August. I'd cut myself down to under 200, and I was in like 180 range. And by the time I got married at the end of December, I was 175 pounds. So it was like
Oh,
in
wow.
11 months, I just halved my size basically.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of it was through some very, in retrospect, unhealthy decisions I made because I just
Hmm.
didn't know what to do and how to go about it. I was so fixated on a number that I made really, really terrible decisions. And that's part of what this is to maybe help people not make those decisions. But
Yes.
also maybe it's a weird psychological thing that I need to recognize it and verbalize that I made bad decisions and to not do that again. So that's, so it's, to me, it's interesting, like just, hearing somebody, a register or someone who's going to be a registered
Hmm.
nutritionist, sorry,
No, registered dietitian. You had it
dietitian,
right. Yeah.
um, just admit that there's so much noise that you have no idea where to start.
Oh, absolutely. And the terrible thing is, there's so many people out there who are medical professionals who have maybe 1 to 4 hours of nutritional education under their belts,
Mm-hmm.
who are showing themselves to be nutritional experts online
Mm-hmm.
just to get followers, to get likes, to get more people coming to their page. They claim to be a nutritional expert, and they find these obscure studies done on mice or done on cells in a petri dish that are supposed to, in their eyes, completely revolutionize nutrition
Mm-hmm.
when it doesn't. So they get these people to follow them by finding these weird, rare studies that are not duplicatable, that do not actually hold water when you have, human beings in the equation to to get money, and they end up confusing people. I think one of the headlines I saw recently was "Your coffee is killing you." And there's an entire section of Instagram and TikTok where these people talk about how if you drink coffee, which I now have in my lovely little hands right now,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to die because coffee is killing you. When there are actually scientific studies showing that a little bit of coffee can help with your cardiovascular health. So they find these and they prey on people's insecurities, and that's really where the money is. And that's really what you have to be careful of when you're looking at information online. Who is talking, number one? Is it someone who actually has a background in nutrition? Is it a general practitioner or a surgeon or an OB who decided that their regular practice isn't netting enough money, so they're going to write a book on nutrition to get money? Is it someone who has absolutely no knowledge of, the medical fields, the nutrition fields? They're just someone who is at home, bored, looking to make some videos, and maybe looking to take some of your money. You really have to look at where your sources are coming from
Mm-hmm.
and take that. And if it sounds too good to be true, if it sounds too scary to be true, it probably isn't very true.
It's pretty similar advice to a lot of things. If something's
Yeah.
too good to be true, 9 times out of 10, it usually is.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So part of what I wanted to help, at least myself, just internally, but also feeling like there could be others out there that
Hmm.
either are right in the middle of things and just starting to uncover, gosh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, mentally, and not just physically but mentally as well.
Yes.
Can I share with you just some of the things I had done and get a, because you're an expert compared to me in this regard. You have way more knowledge than I do about this. And just, what if you had a patient like me who was telling you that they were doing these things, what would you have recommended?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when I started, I used to eat a whole bunch of junk food. Just, I mean, you name it. I drank soda all the time, no water, little to no water
Hmm.
intake. Anything was chocolate, I had to have it, had to eat it. Just the worst frozen pizza, junk food, anything you could have. That's what I used to eat. Then I cut that out and I switched to just a typical, or I shouldn't say typical, a pretty bland diet
Hmm.
of baked chicken. So didn't put any breadcrumbs on it. It wasn't fried, just baked in the oven.
Hmm.
4 ounces of that for lunch, and steamed broccoli. That was my lunch every day.
Hmm. Yeah.
This was, of
I'm
course, starting
familiar with that.
in January. Of course, I had a friend at the time that goes, that's what, and he's my best friend. He had nothing but my
Mhm.
best interests at heart, but he's like, this is what I eat when I want to lose weight and when I'm wanting to, get myself back into shape. Baked chicken has the protein,
Mhm.
and get yourself a good vegetable in there. So that was what I just cut out as much junk food as I could, and I simply went to calorie in, calorie out
Mhm.
food, eating, and water drinking. What would you have recommended for somebody who's at the beginning of losing weight, or maybe in the middle of it and finding it hard to
Mhm.
maybe stick with something so bland? What would you recommend?
Well, and I have kind of a weird sense of humor. I call that bro dieting.
Okay.
And it is very popular and it is very effective, especially for bodybuilders when they're in their cutting phase,
Hmm.
because that is a phase where they're trying to maintain their muscle mass, lose their fat mass. And it's really easy to do that when you have just the protein and then you get, some carbs from the vegetables, but mainly you're getting your micronutrients, your vitamins, your minerals, and cutting down really, really hard on those carbs. Now, it is effective, but it is really hard to stick with. And it can really decrease your positive relationship with food which is what you need to work on in order to make this an actual lifestyle. And you hear people online constantly saying it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Well, some diets can become lifestyles if you can stick with it. And like you said, what would you recommend, to get someone to stick with this in the long term? I always tell my people, don't focus on what you can take out of your diet. Focus on what you can add into your diet in the beginning. Because, a lot of us in this society in particular, fast food is glorified,
Mm.
candy's glorified, junk food's glorified. If you're not eating at McDonald's, if you're not snacking on a bag of chips, you're looked at like you're the weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
So really finding a way to do it while still fitting in to those societal norms in the beginning is very important, because we really don't talk about the fact that um, societal pressures play a huge role in our ability to stick to a diet.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than removing all of that from your life, removing all of that, which does affect your mental health, it can cause, headaches, withdrawals, really the symptoms that you would get when you stop drinking, when you stop doing drugs. Those same symptoms happen when you cut out all of that food from your diet. So rather than doing that, adding in the things that are more healthful. I have my clients generally start with adding in, a few more glasses of water a day,
Mm-hmm.
starting really, really small. That's the first goal. The second goal is to try to eat at least 4 servings of vegetables. And I don't mean the starchy vegetables like potatoes, corn, which are still good, but that's not what we're focusing on. More the cruciferous vegetables, the leafy greens, asparagus, broccoli, even carrots if you want to. Any of those that are really going to help getting your body, refreshed,
Mm-hmm.
and to get you used to eating those vegetables. Because, a lot of the adults that I work with just straight up tell me, I don't like vegetables, I'm not eating them.
Mm-hmm.
So much harder to work with than children.
Yes, that would have been me in 2017. If I had come to you, that would have been me. I didn't eat any vegetables. I mean, I've come a long way since, and probably not as not like my wife. My wife
Mhm.
loves vegetables. I've not seen her turn down any vegetable at all. So she's opened my eyes, and my
Mhm.
palate has helped extend that. So it's not about cutting things out. It's about adding in the right foods to help your body. Right? Is that
Exactly.
okay?
And really take a moment to think about that. Think about your mental health. Think
I
about,
do on a daily basis.
yeah, I mean, when you're thinking about it, if you start obsessing about those things that you have to remove from your diet, I mean, you mentioned, the pop, the candy, the frozen pizzas, things that no one really needs, but that can be really difficult to stop eating.
Mhm.
If you had started with, instead of removing them all out initially, remember that shock value that happened to your mind and your body,
Mhm.
all the things that had to change with your lifestyle, all the things that had to happen immediately. How would that have changed if instead of removing them out immediately, you had added in a few things to help fill you up with those vegetables, to help your body really start refreshing itself? And by refreshing, I mean helping with digestion, reducing inflammation, the things that happen when you were properly hydrated, when your body gets those vegetables to help it break down, everything else in the digestive system. Do you think that would have helped you in the beginning a little bit with that different mental change?
Oh, I mean, from a mental health standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
looking back on it now, there's so much I wish I would have either talked to somebody about, gotten advice on, or tried
Mm-hmm.
to look up, because I mean, I would be willing to try, go back and try anything to
Yeah.
not, to not feel like I feel. And when I say that, I there's a feeling in me. It's like, what do I have to complain about? I mean, I weighed and looked a certain way. I weigh and
Mm-hmm.
look a different way now, and I achieved my goals. But it's uncovered a whole lot of other things that now I'm trying to address, and it can be hard some days to wake up, and I'm no longer getting on the scale every day, which was a whole other thing we could probably talk about,
Oh,
how
yeah.
terrible that is for someone's mindset.
Don't do it.
Um, but I made the mistake of doing it last night for some stupid reason,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like I'm now the heaviest I've been since I was the lowest I've ever been. It just seems like it's creeping back up, and I'm trying to reestablish certain things I used to do, certain habits that I've kind of gotten away from, and
Mm-hmm.
it's I would love to try different things
Yeah.
to feel better about myself. to really feel like I'm not 350 pounds anymore.
Hmm.
So
Are you familiar with Stuart Smalley?
yes, I am.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm aging myself here big time, but Stuart Smalley was wise.
yeah.
I'm serious about this. A big way to help people combat that sense of body dysmorphia that we let's face it, the vast majority of people in the society have it, whether they realize it or not, whether they're in a larger body or in a smaller body. We suffer from body dysmorphia because we are bombarded constantly with ads online, on TV about what the perfect person looks like, about how we're supposed to look.
Hmm.
If you look at yourself in the mirror every single day for a month and you say one kind thing about your body, you would be amazed at the difference that it makes. One simple kind thing. It could even be, I love the way I smile. My eyes look particularly green today. Man, my hands aren't shaking as often today. Little things like that. It really helps with those senses of distaste, dissatisfaction
Hmm.
with your body.
Yeah, the daily affirmations. That's I have
Hmm.
a friend who will be on a future episode. I know she's a big believer in daily affirmations.
Hmm.
Um, so you're now the second person. So maybe there's something too, because I've not tried it, and so I sit here. I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite. I sit here and say I'd love to try things, and yet there's certain things I haven't tried yet.
That's the human condition.
So let me kind of take you to the next step. Once I start this whole working out process, and at this
Hmm.
time, what led to me realizing I needed to change, a long-term relationship had ended, and I'm feeling like I'll probably never find somebody again,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be alone. And so my the person I mentioned, my best friend, he has me move in with them, but on a conditional basis. I have to go to the YMCA. I have to go to a gym and
Hmm.
start taking care of myself, which is, in hindsight, it was great to have that support system there.
Absolutely.
But because I'm by myself and I have no obligation or responsibility to anybody else, I start going every day, an hour on the elliptical every day.
Hmm.
And it becomes for a really solid stretch of, several months. I think I went back and looked just in prep for all this. And from January to May 15th, I think I took 4 or 5 days off from the gym. I was just
Hmm.
there every day because I had nowhere else to go. And I'm weighing myself every day,
Hmm.
every morning and every night. Because you'd mentioned mental health.
Yes.
So what if you have a client that's telling you, something along those lines? What are you now trying to recommend to help them see that they don't have to do that? Because I'm looking back, and that is sort of the beginning that I can kind of pinpoint. That's the beginning of me not realizing it then,
Hmm.
but I can realize it now. Like that was sort of the beginning of everything sort of coming apart.
Yes. Now, are you familiar with the term orthorexia?
I am not.
Orthorexia, and I'm paraphrasing here, so please do not look at an online dictionary and go, this is not the exact definition. It's basically an obsession with being healthy. And there is a lovely section of Instagram dedicated to gym bunnies and gym bros. And I love them because I am one. Just don't look like it. Who are very self aware with their obsession with fitness and how people can use fitness to mask the things that are going on in their lives and to mask their issues with mental health. Orthorexia is something that is very serious that I think more people need to know about and need to know the dangers of, because if you are starting to work out and eating healthier, you have to really make sure that you're doing, if not daily, weekly checks and balances with your mental health to make sure you do not get to that level, to get to that obsessive level that you're talking about. And as you know, with, any mental health issue, the worst thing that you can do when someone is starting to exhibit those habits is to point blank say, you're obsessed with going to the gym and you need to stop.
Hmm.
So at that point, you really have to interview the person. If you were my client and you told me that you were doing that for months at a time, going for an hour every day, not taking any rest, I would ask, how are you feeling? Is it helping you sleep any better? How's your mental health? Are you feeling better about life doing this? Do you feel more relaxed? Do you find yourself getting hungrier, or are you less hungry while you're doing this? Have you missed out on any family obligations because you have to be at the gym? Have you avoided being around other people because you feel like you have to be at the gym? So really digging in that way, I mean, you really become kind of a psychologist.
Hmm.
It's very important to have that behavioral change background. Really asking yourself those questions if you're not working with someone is very important to point out if you are starting to exhibit those obsessive behaviors. Because then, I mean, at that point, it's really important to step back,
Hmm.
even take a week off of going to the gym to sit with your emotions, to sit with the reasons why you feel like you have to be at the gym for that long every day, and be honest with yourself and figure out what other activities you could do to get, that dopamine fix, to get those happy emotions flowing that doesn't take you to the gym.
Hmm. It's really good advice. Again,
Thank
something I wish I would have had
you.
back then, and it just, it just didn't happen that way.
Mhm,
So this is something I haven't. My wife knows I did this probably. So you'll now be, I think, the second person who knows, and this is where I kind of acknowledge that this was some of the stupidest behavior I exhibited.
mhm,
Um, but I think it's important to acknowledge it. So I mentioned I did calorie in, calorie out.
mhm,
There was about a 2 or 3 week period there where I built up such a large deficit in calories, like burned
mhm,
calories, because I was only intaking about 1,200 a day.
mhm,
What is the recommended? I know they say 2,000 calories, like when you're buying things, but I don't know.
mhm.
Like, is that the recommended, or is there a recommended minimum? Like, what, as a nutritionist and soon to be registered dietitian, what is the daily healthy recommended uh, calorie intake for somebody?
Well, and it varies based on your age and your sex.
Hmm.
So a man my age would get to eat a lot more than I get to eat.
That doesn't seem fair.
No, it doesn't. It's quite unfair, but thanks, bodies. 2,000 calories is a great generalization, but we would use your height and your weight and your gender, or excuse me, your sex, to go through and calculate a good calorie average for you.
Hmm.
Now, the thing with those calculations is that, again, is a general goal. You as a human being, your hormones are different than anybody else. Your muscle mass is different than anybody else. Your lifestyle, how often you get up and walk around, the food that you have access to, these are all different. So it's important to take that general number. And if you're not working, with someone to help you with this, the general numbers are just fine. That general calculation where you're taking your height, excuse me, let me back up. If you're using the US standards, you take your weight times your height squared times 730, I believe it is. You can find the calculator online. It just completely left my brain, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Uh, that can give you oh no, that's your BMI. That's the BMI calculator. That's why it wasn't sounding right. Um, for your weight, you can take your weight in pounds divided by 2.2 to get it in kilograms, and you can times it by 25 for your maintenance calories, 20 for your weight loss calories, and then what was it? 30 for weight gain. So that is the general calculation. Sorry, I have 4 kids. My brain goes everywhere.
That's totally fine.
So that's the general calculation. But you also have to understand that if you start eating at that calorie level and you're still hungry, and I mean really hungry, not just, you're sitting in front of the TV and you're like, oh, I could use some chips. But your stomach starts rumbling. You start obsessing over the food that you see. You start salivating. Salivating is a big hunger cue. You need to eat a little bit more than what the calculation says. In the same aspect, if you get to that calculation and you're having a really difficult time hitting that calorie level, it may be time to evaluate whether you're having a hard time because you are truly full or because you have a mental block in place
Hmm.
that won't allow you to hit that calorie level. I will tell you that 1,200 calories is generally the number of calories that a toddler needs.
Hmm. Right.
So,
Again, it
yeah.
was. I mean, in again, completely in hindsight, with burning anywhere from 3,500 to 4,000 calories a
Mhm,
day, just because that's what I would go to the gym and I would, work out there and I would walk at work. I mean, I was routinely, blowing past the 10,000 steps,
Yeah.
a day thing. I would routinely come home having walked or used the elliptical in to the equivalent of 7.5 to 10 miles a day, basically, just
Yeah.
because again I was so singularly fixated on I have to be less than what I am now. I have to keep going. I have to keep going. I have to keep going. And then my doctor, who I mean he I'm thankfully that he prescribed me phentermine, which I'm not sure how you feel about that. He did in the very beginning, but I had started taking it every other day to extend out the 3 month period I was allowed to be on it.
Hmm.
Um, so, and of course, that was at his recommendation because I did tell him after the first month, just take it daily.
Hmm.
For those who may not know, phentermine is a weight loss drug, or at least as it was described to me by my doctor. It in layman's terms, as he gave to me, he's like, it's supposed to help you not feel hungry
Hmm.
if you don't want to feel hungry. You have to eat still. He goes, but it's
Yes.
the whole idea is that you don't eat as much because you have a regular lunch, or, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that you don't feel the need to maybe snack so often in between with the unhealthy snacks. And so that was, he didn't prescribe it to me as a means for me to take it and then stop eating as much, which is
Yeah.
what I was doing for a 2 or 3 week period there. And then I recognized I couldn't do that because the more I kept reading about caloric intakes, like your body, it just needs it to function.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
reading, it got scary reading that, well, to keep your heart beating, to breathe, for your lungs to just breathe, to do all
Hmm.
this stuff, your body needs a certain amount of calories every day and you burn it while you sleep. So you need to eat. And I was like, well, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And it was stupid to even flirt with it. But so,
Well, and when you stop, your body starts cannibalizing itself.
mhm,
So it starts breaking down your organs and your bones
mhm,
in order to get that energy that
mhm.
it needs.
Do you think there's any, I mean, have you discovered, is there any type of, I mean, even if it was a brief period like that, long term effect that can have? I mean, you just mentioned breaking down your bones, but besides that, I mean, could it have led, if I'd continued, what do you think would have happened if I'd continued being as irresponsible as I was being at that period?
Your vital functions would have ceased. I'm not saying, I mean, you would have like died immediately, but your organs absolutely would have started failing had you continued that for an extended amount of time. And I don't give an exact amount of time because again, we're all different.
Mhm,
And I mean, you could possibly go years like that, depending on how much, fat you had on your body, um, how quickly your body was breaking down, in order to provide that energy. But I mean, you could have eventually starved to death.
mhm. That's
And
very,
on those weight loss pills, and I do not like them, but that's for personal reasons. My mom was actually over 600 pounds, and they prescribed Fin for her,
mhm,
and that is a precursor to the pill that your doctor placed you on. And when not all doctors, but when a lot of doctors place their patients on these pills, they do not then go into the education of how to keep, those behavioral changes from coming back when the pills are gone.
mhm,
So it's like putting a band-aid over a giant hole in a dam.
mhm. Talk to me about that, 'cause that's interesting. That,
Hmm.
I mean, because that I've told my wife and like my brother, that's been my biggest
Hmm.
fear now for, I mean, I've pretty much, I'm back at, roughly the weight I was when I got married,
Hmm.
which is fine. It's not, we're necessarily where I'd want to be, but I was happy to, I look back and I was happy to be at that weight when I got married.
Hmm. Yeah.
um so that has been my biggest fear, is that I would start these habits, I would lose this weight, and then I would basically regain it all and then some. I mean,
Hmm.
that's something he talked to me about, but he didn't really prepare me for it, 'cause I don't know if he was had the knowledge. Just,
Yeah.
it was more of a, just be careful that, he's had patients lose weight and then they gain it all back. So just try to, it was more of a try to keep those habits up,
Hmm.
try to keep those 10,000 steps in, and keep living a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
How often do you see that?
A lot.
People, is there a statistic that you kind of, a general statistic of people who lose weight and then regain it, or gain it back and more?
It's in the 90 percentile. I want to say it's 95%. And that is of the people who are not educated during the process. There's a huge push right now for anti-diet culture, and I am 100% against diet culture, but diets are necessary. Living on a diet is not necessary, but there are times when you've got a diet to lose weight, and I think we lose sight of that sometimes. But while you are dieting, making sure that you are educating yourself on the fact that eating, these fewer calories is temporary, that your body needs the fuel. The big issue with, some of the supplements and some of the weight loss pills and things like that, again, is in the lack of education where you're not used to feeling your natural hunger cues when you stifle them like that. So you're actually messing with the ghrelin and the leptin in your body when you're telling yourself to not be hungry. So when your hormones start acting appropriately again, when they do their job and signal when you're hungry and signal when you're full, your mind doesn't know what to do. It's been on this kind of autopilot program where, okay, I kind of got to eat because I need to eat, but now I'm really hungry. I don't have this pill to stop telling me I'm hungry all the time. So then you just start overeating because you haven't learned to deal with those cues. Reconnect or repairing that mind-body connection, I really wish is what doctors would be focusing more on. And I understand there are patients that they can't. Like with my mom, she was 600 pounds. Her body was shutting down. Her organs were literally being crushed by the fat around them. And there are people in that situation who are working under the lesser of two evils, where they have to lose weight quickly. And you can't always do that in a healthy manner. But for the rest of people, for the majority of people who are trying to lose weight and the majority of people who get on these pills, they have to start giving them that education that you're going to start feeling hungry again. What are you going to do with that emotion? How are you mentally going to prepare yourself for feeling hungry again? Is that going to cause you anxiety? Are you then going to start fearing hunger? To stop working out because that's going to make you hungry again? To walk less so that your body doesn't burn as many calories and doesn't request food soon enough? I mean, those are huge, huge things that we need to talk about. When putting people on medicine like that, we're throwing them to the wolves and we're not we're not preparing them for real life.
Life After Extreme Weight Loss, hosted by Brandon Schneider and produced by Brandon Schneider with help from the Elliott School of Communication. If you need help navigating mental health, reach out to Counseling and Prevention Services or your local healthcare professional.